The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of Defense Station Horizon's gate. Commander Hyun-woo stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the distant lights that marked the edge of human space. Beyond that invisible line lay the territory of the Galactic Empire, a massive civilization that had ruled this section of the galaxy for 3,000 years. Hyun-woo's communicator buzzed. He tapped it without looking away from the viewport. "Commander here." "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Empire's flagship. They're demanding to speak with whoever's in charge of this sector." The voice belonged to Lieutenant Bo-ra, his communications officer. "Put it through to the command center. I'll be there in 2 minutes." Hyun-woo took one last look at the stars before turning away. Something about this felt wrong. The Empire rarely contacted human stations directly. They preferred to act as if humanity didn't exist. The command center buzzed with quiet activity. Screens displayed ship positions, energy readings, and communications data. Bora gestured to the main view screen as Hyun-woo entered. "They're waiting, sir." "Open the channel." The screen flickered to life, showing a reptilian face with golden eyes and scaled skin that shimmered under harsh lighting. The alien wore ceremonial armor decorated with symbols of conquest. "I am War Marshal Thek Soren of the Galactic Empire. You will relay this message to your leadership immediately." Hyun-woo kept his expression neutral. "I'm listening." "The Empire has identified 3 systems within your territory that contain resources vital to our continued expansion. These systems will be transferred to Imperial control within 72 hours. Refuse, and we will take them by force. This is the only warning your species will receive." The channel closed before Hyun-woo could respond. The command center fell silent. Bora stared at the blank screen with wide eyes. "Sir, did they just—" "Yes, they just threatened to invade." Hyun-woo moved to the communications console. "Get me Admiral Ji-won immediately. Priority Alpha." While waiting for the connection, Hyun-woo pulled up tactical displays of the 3 systems the Empire wanted. All 3 were mining colonies home to nearly 2 million human civilians. Rich in exotic matter used for faster-than-light drives, these systems represented years of investment and development. More importantly, they were human territory, claimed and settled legally according to every galactic law. Admiral Ji-won's face appeared on a private screen. She looked tired, but her eyes sharpened when she saw Hyun-woo's expression. "What happened?" "The Empire just issued an ultimatum. 3 systems, 72 hours. They want us to surrender them or face invasion." Ji-won was quiet for a moment. "Which systems?" "New Seoul Busan Station and the Daegu Mining Complex. 2 million people." Ji-won closed her eyes briefly. "Have they started moving their fleet?" "Our long-range sensors show increased activity along the border. It looks like they're gathering ships. A lot of ships. Convene the War Council. I want every department head on the line in 1 hour. And Hyun-woo, start running combat simulations. I need to know exactly what we're facing." The next hour passed in a blur. Hyun-woo coordinated with dozens of defense stations along the border, while analysts compiled everything humanity knew about Imperial military capabilities. The picture that emerged was not encouraging. The Empire fielded an estimated 5,000 warships, each one massive and heavily armed. Humanity's entire defense fleet numbered just over 800 capital ships. The War Council meeting included faces from across human space. Admiral Ji-won chaired the session from Terran Command Headquarters on Earth. Captain Dae-hyun attended from his flagship, the TCS Indomitable, currently stationed near the border. Dr. Hana joined from the Xenobiology Research Center, and Ambassador Tae-yang connected from the Galactic Council Station Concordia. "Let's hear it," Ji-won said without preamble. "Ambassador, what's the political situation?" Tae-yang looked frustrated. "I've been trying to reach Imperial representatives for the past hour. They're refusing all communication. The other council members are pretending nothing's happening. No one wants to challenge the Empire." "Dr. Hana, what do we know about their military?" The scientist pulled up holographic displays. "The Empire hasn't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. They've expanded by overwhelming inferior species through sheer numbers and superior technology. Their ships use plasma-based weapons and energy shields. Very powerful. But their tactics haven't evolved in centuries. They follow rigid formations and predictable strategies. Captain Dae-hyun, can we win?" The captain of the Indomitable studied the tactical data before answering. "In a straight fight? No, they outnumber us 6-1. But if we use our advantages, mobility, adaptability, and knowledge of the terrain, we can make them pay for every meter of space they try to take. Ji-won nodded slowly. Commander Hyun-woo, what's your assessment from the border? Their fleet is massing at the neutral zone. Current count shows approximately 5,000 ships. They're making no effort to hide their movements. This is meant to intimidate us. Is it working? Ji-won's question was directed at everyone. Silence filled the channel for a moment. Then Captain Dae-hyun spoke. No, ma'am. We've prepared for this scenario. Every simulation, every training exercise, every technological development over the past 50 years has been building toward this moment. We're not the minor species they think we are. Ji-won made her decision. We do not abandon our people. We do not surrender our territory. Ambassador Tae-yang, I need you to request one final meeting with the Imperial delegation. Make it clear this is their last chance for a peaceful resolution. The meeting ended. Hyun-woo returned to monitoring the border, watching as more Imperial ships joined the gathering fleet. They moved with arrogant confidence, maintaining tight formations that looked impressive but would be vulnerable to concentrated fire. 12 hours later, Ambassador Tae-yang contacted the War Council again. His expression told the story before he spoke. They refused to meet. The message from War Marshal Thex-Oren was brief. He said that humanity should use the remaining time to evacuate the three systems because they will belong to the Empire soon. Admiral Ji-won stood from her chair. Behind her, through the windows of Terran Command, Earth rotated in peaceful blue silence. Then we'll give them our answer the only way they'll understand. Open a channel to every ship in our fleet and transmit this message directly to the Imperial fleet at the border. Cameras activated across human space. Every defense station, every warship, every military installation received the broadcast. More importantly, so did the Galactic Empire's invasion fleet. Admiral Ji-won looked directly into the camera. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 2 centuries of human determination. This is Admiral Ji-won of Terran Fleet Command. We have received your ultimatum and your threats. Here is our response. We do not surrender our worlds. We do not bow to demands. We do not abandon our people. The 3 systems you claim are human territory, home to human citizens, and they will remain under human protection. She paused, letting the words sink in. You believe your numbers give you victory. You believe your technology makes you invincible. You believe we will scatter before your fleet like frightened children. You are wrong on all counts. Cross the border, and you will face the full might of the Terran fleet. Every ship, every weapon, every man and woman who has sworn to defend humanity will stand against you. This is your only warning. The channel closed. Across human space, crews moved to battle stations. On Horizon's Gate, Commander Hyun-woo watched the Imperial fleet through his sensors. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as if in response to Ji-won's challenge, the massive enemy formation began moving forward. The Empire was coming, and humanity was ready. War Marshal Thex-Oren stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Hammer, and watched the human border grow closer. Around his ship, 5,000 warships moved in perfect formation, a display of power that had brought 100 worlds to their knees. Behind him, his officers worked at their stations with calm efficiency. This would be over quickly. Analysis of the human response? Thex-Oren asked his tactical officer. Emotional and illogical, Marshal. They threaten us with a fleet barely 1/6 our size. Our intelligence reports their technology is inferior in every category. This is either courage or stupidity. With humans, it's often both. Thex-Oren studied the tactical display. How many ships are they bringing to face us? Long-range sensors detect approximately 300 human vessels holding position at the border. They're spread across multiple defensive points, trying to cover too much space with too few ships. Thex-Oren made a dismissive gesture. They divide their already inadequate forces. We will crush them in the first engagement, then proceed to occupy the disputed systems. Send the order. All ships advance at battle speed. We cross the border in 1 hour. On Defense Station Horizon's Gate, Commander Hyun-woo watched the same displays with very different thoughts. The Imperial fleet was doing exactly what decades of intelligence analysis predicted they would do. Overwhelming force, rigid formation, predictable tactics. The Empire had become lazy through centuries of easy victories. Status of the hidden platforms? Hyun-woo asked. Lieutenant Bo-ra checked her displays. All weapon platforms are online and fully armed. They're maintaining communication silence as ordered. The Empire hasn't detected them. Good. What about our defensive formations? All ships are in position. Captain Dae-hyun reports the Indomitable and her battle group are ready. Captain Sun Hee's cruiser squadron is holding at Point Delta. The reserve fleet is standing by at Rally Point Echo. Hyunwoo nodded. On the surface, it looked like humanity had made a mistake, spreading thin to defend multiple positions. In reality, every ship placement had been calculated to create overlapping fields of fire and mutual support. The Empire was walking into a carefully prepared trap. Admiral Jiwon's face appeared on his command screen. Commander, the Empire will cross the border in 45 minutes. All stations are to hold fire until they commit fully to the attack. I want their entire fleet inside our defensive zone before we engage. Understood, Admiral. What if they stop at the border? They won't. Their arrogance won't allow it. But if I'm wrong, we'll adapt. That's what humans do best. 45 minutes felt like hours. Hyunwoo walked through the command center, checking systems and talking quietly with his crew. These were trained professionals, but many had never seen real combat. The Empire's fleet was the largest hostile force humanity had ever faced. Sir, the lead elements are approaching the border. Bora's voice was steady, but Hyunwoo could hear the tension underneath. Track them. Weapons stay cold until Admiral Jiwon gives the order. The Imperial fleet crossed the border without slowing. 5,000 massive warships pushing deep into human territory. Their weapons armed and shields at maximum power. They expected the human ships to retreat or die trying to defend their positions. Instead, the Terran fleet powered up their weapons and held position. On the Imperial hammer, alarms started sounding. Marshal, the humans are targeting us with active sensors. They're preparing to fire. Thexorin laughed. Let them. Open fire on the nearest human vessels. Show them the price of defiance. The Empire's plasma weapons lit up the darkness of space. Brilliant streams of superheated energy crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds. Imperial gunners targeted the human defensive line with practiced precision. These weapons had destroyed ships from a dozen different species. They would make short work of humanity's fleet. The plasma bolt struck Terran shields with massive force. On the Indomitable, Captain Dae-hyun gripped his chair as the ship shook from the impact. Damage reports flooded in from across his battle group. Shield status, he demanded. Shields holding at 70%. The plasma weapons hit hard, but the shields are absorbing most of the energy. His tactical officer looked surprised. Sir, our defensive modifications are working. They're designed specifically to counter plasma-based attacks. Dae-hyun allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had been studying Imperial weapons technology for decades. Every captured scan, every intelligence report, every piece of data had been analyzed. Terran shields had been engineered specifically to defend against this exact threat. Return fire. All weapons full spread. Target their forward elements. The Terran fleet opened fire with railguns and missile systems. Instead of energy weapons, humanity relied on kinetic force. Solid projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. The Empire considered such weapons primitive, relics of less advanced civilizations. That arrogance lasted exactly as long as it took for the first railgun slug to hit an Imperial warship. The projectile, moving at a significant fraction of light speed, struck the lead Imperial cruiser's shields. The energy shields, optimized to deflect plasma and directed energy weapons, offered minimal resistance to solid matter moving with such tremendous kinetic energy. The slug punched through the shield, through the armor, and through the ship itself. The Imperial cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash. What just happened? Thexorin stared at his tactical display in disbelief. One of his ships had simply ceased to exist. Direct hit from a kinetic weapon, Marshal. The projectile penetrated our shields and destroyed the ship's reactor. That's impossible. Kinetic weapons are obsolete. Our shields. Another Imperial ship exploded. Then another. The Terran fleet's railguns fired in coordinated volleys, each shot calculated by advanced targeting computers. Missiles streaked across the battlefield, overwhelming point defense systems through sheer numbers. Commander Hyunwoo watched the battle unfold exactly as planned. Activate the hidden platforms. Full weapons release. Throughout the border zone, automated weapons platforms that had been drifting silently in the dark suddenly came to life. Positioned carefully over weeks of preparation, these platforms added massive firepower to the Terran defense. They fired from unexpected angles, catching Imperial ships in crossfire they couldn't escape. The Empire's rigid formation, so impressive when advancing became a liability. Ships couldn't maneuver without colliding with their neighbors. Commanders waited for orders from the flagship while Terran forces adapted and struck with frightening coordination. Captain Sunhee's cruiser squadron exploited the chaos. Her ships broke formation and dove into the Imperial fleet like sharks, targeting command vessels and communications ships. Every Imperial flagship they destroyed left dozens of warships without clear orders, their commanders uncertain whether to advance, retreat, or hold position. On the Indomitable, Captain Daehyun coordinated with other Terran commanders through rapid, encrypted communications. The Terran fleet didn't fight like the Empire expected. There were no grand formations or predictable patterns. Each ship operated with independence, yet they worked together with perfect synchronization. Captains made decisions in seconds, adapting to changing battlefield conditions without waiting for orders from headquarters. Marshal, we've lost over 400 ships. The humans are tearing through our forward lines. The tactical officer's voice had lost its earlier confidence. Our shields aren't stopping their weapons. We need to withdraw and regroup. Thexerin stared at the tactical display, watching his ships die in numbers that should have been impossible. The humans weren't just defending, they were winning. All ships focus fire on their flagship. If we can destroy their command structure... Sir, their flagship is moving directly toward us. The Indomitable burst through the Imperial formation with 4 other Terran battleships. They fired continuously, their railguns punching holes through Imperial shields like they were paper. Captain Daehyun had identified the Imperial hammer as the enemy command ship, and he was going straight for it. All weapons target that oversized monument to their arrogance. I want it crippled, not destroyed. Let's give them a message to take home. The Indomitable's main railgun fired. The slug crossed the distance in less than a second and hit the Imperial hammer's shield generator. The shields collapsed. Secondary weapons targeted the ship's engines and weapons arrays, carefully avoiding the command sections and life support. Thexorin felt his flagship shudder as systems failed across the vessel. Damage report. Engines offline. Weapons offline. We're dead in space, Marshal. Around the Imperial hammer, the remaining Imperial ships began retreating. What had started as a confident invasion had become a desperate flight. Terran ships pursued but didn't press too hard. Admiral Jiwon had ordered them to bloody the Empire, not to massacre them. The goal was to teach a lesson, not to create martyrs. Commander Hyunwoo pulled up the final casualty reports. The Empire had lost over 2,000 ships destroyed or disabled. The Terran fleet had lost 3 ships destroyed and 47 damaged. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. Admiral Jiwon's broadcast went out to both fleets. This is what happens when you cross our borders. Leave now and we'll allow you to collect your survivors. Return and we won't be so mercy. Terran Command warns. The Galactic Empire crossed the border and faced the fleet part. 3. The Galactic Council Chamber on Station Concordia looked like every other day, but Ambassador Tae Yang knew better. Word of the Imperial defeat had spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire had been beaten in open combat. Representatives from dozens of species filled the circular chamber, their seats arranged in traditional hierarchy with the Empire's delegation at the highest tier. Today, those seats sat empty except for one minor official who looked like he wished he were anywhere else. The council speaker, an ancient being from the Mothcar species, called the session to order. We are here to discuss the recent military engagement between the Galactic Empire and the Human Terran Federation. Ambassador Taeyang, you may present humanity's statement. Taeyang stood, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon him. Thank you, Speaker. The facts are simple and documented. The Empire issued an illegal ultimatum demanding we surrender 3 sovereign systems. We refused. They invaded. We defended our territory. They were repelled. Under galactic law, humanity acted entirely within our rights. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Empire's temporary representative stood quickly. The human military used excessive force against Imperial vessels. Over 2,000 ships were destroyed. Those ships were invading our space, Taeyang replied calmly. Would the Empire have shown more restraint if the situation were reversed? Your own military history suggests otherwise. Before the argument could continue, alarms blared throughout the station. The speaker's console lit up with urgent messages. We are receiving reports that the Empire is mobilizing its reserve fleet. 50,000 warships are being called to active duty. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. 50,000 ships represented nearly the Empire's entire military capacity. If they moved against humanity with that kind of force, the death toll would be catastrophic on both sides. Taeyang's communicator buzzed with an encrypted message from Admiral Jiwan. He read it quickly, his expression hardening. The ambassador looked up at the council. Then I must deliver a message from Terran Fleet Command. If the Empire escalates this conflict, humanity will not wait for them to gather their forces. We will strike first. That's a declaration of war, the Imperial representative shouted. No, Taeyang said quietly. It's a statement of fact. You started this. We're prepared to finish it. Back on Horizon's Gate, Commander Hyunwoo was being promoted. Admiral Jiwan had arrived personally to award him the rank of Commodore and give him a new assignment. They stood in the observation deck overlooking the border, where repair crews worked to fix the damaged defense platforms. The Empire is mobilizing everything they have, Jiwan said without preamble. Intelligence estimates they'll be ready to attack again within 30 days. We can't give them that time. What are you proposing, Admiral? A preemptive strike. We take the fight to them before they bring their full strength to bear. Jiwan pulled up a holographic map showing deep Imperial territory. You're going to command Task Force Spear. 300 ships, our fastest and most advanced vessels. Your mission is to penetrate Imperial space and destroy their forward military infrastructure. Shipyards, supply depots, staging areas. Make it impossible for them to launch another invasion. Hyunwoo studied the map. The targets were deep in enemy territory, surrounded by defensive stations and patrol fleets. This is extremely dangerous. I know. That's why I'm giving it to you. You understand how to fight smart instead of hard. Jiwan met his eyes. The Empire thinks big. They think overwhelming force and superior numbers. You need to think like a human. Fast, unpredictable, and absolutely relentless. When do we leave? 72 hours. I'm giving you the Indomitable and Captain Dae-hyun. Pick the rest of your task force carefully. You'll be operating without support deep in enemy space. The next 3 days passed in intense preparation. Commodore Hyunwoo selected his ships personally, choosing captains known for independent thinking and aggressive tactics. Captain Dae-hyun helped coordinate the battle plans, while Dr. Hana provided detailed intelligence on Imperial systems and installations. Lieutenant Bo-ra transferred to the Indomitable as Hyunwoo's communications officer. During the final briefing, she looked at the star maps with obvious concern. Sir, if we go this deep into their territory and something goes wrong, there's no one coming to rescue us. Then we won't let anything go wrong, Hyunwoo replied. The Empire is used to fighting on their terms in their way. We're going to show them what human warfare really means. Task Force Spear departed from Terran space using experimental slipspace drives that could jump farther than standard faster-than-light engines. The technology was new and somewhat unstable, but it allowed them to bypass Imperial border defenses entirely. They emerged from slipspace in the Cortex system, home to 3 major Imperial shipyards. The local defense force consisted of about 40 warships, and they were completely unprepared for human ships appearing in their home system. All ships, weapons-free, target the shipyards and docked vessels. Avoid civilian structures. Hyunwoo's orders were followed instantly. The Terran ships spread out, hitting targets across the system simultaneously. Captain Dae-hyun led the Indomitable and 2 other battleships against the main shipyard. They faced minimal resistance as the Imperial defenders scrambled to respond. The humans moved through the system like a surgical strike team, destroying military targets with precision while leaving civilian infrastructure untouched. Sir, we're receiving distress calls from the planet below. They're asking for mercy. Bo-ra listened to the transmissions with a troubled expression. Tell them we're not here for their cities or their people. We're here for their military. If they stay clear of our targets, they won't be harmed. Hyunwoo watched as another shipyard exploded under concentrated railgun fire. 2 more targets, then we jump out. I want us gone before reinforcements arrive. Task Force Spear hit 5 more systems over the next 10 days. Each strike followed the same pattern. Appear without warning, destroy military targets, and disappear before the Empire could respond effectively. News of the raid spread panic through Imperial space. Citizens who had never worried about war suddenly watched human warships in their skies. The Empire's military leadership struggled to respond. Their ships were powerful but slow. Their communications network was efficient but predictable. Humans exploited every weakness, striking where the Empire was vulnerable and avoiding direct confrontation with major fleet concentrations. On the 15th day, Task Force Spear reached its primary target, Callus Prime, the fortress world that served as the Empire's forward military command center. In orbit around the heavily defended planet sat 300 of the Empire's most advanced warships. Protecting the command complex below, Captain Sun He, commanding a cruiser squadron, looked at the tactical display with obvious doubt. "Commodore, this is suicide. We're outnumbered and they have planetary defenses supporting them." "Only if we fight the way they expect," Hyunwoo replied. He pulled up a detailed battle plan that made several captains gasp. "We're not going to engage their fleet directly. We're going to make them think we are, then hit them from an angle they won't anticipate." The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. Task Force Spear would split into 3 groups. The first would make a direct approach, drawing the attention of the Imperial fleet. The second would use the planet's gravity well to slingshot around and hit from an unexpected angle. The third, including the Indomitable, would drop out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system and fire long-range missiles programmed to arrive at the precise moment the other attacks began. "Timing is everything," Hyunwoo explained. "If we're off by even 30 seconds, the whole plan falls apart. But if we execute perfectly, we'll overwhelm their defenses before they understand what's happening." Captain Daehyun studied the plan and slowly smiled. "This is crazy. Let's do it." The Battle of Callus Prime began with the first group of Terran ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of the Imperial defensive line. The Empire's warships immediately moved to engage, exactly as predicted. Commanders barked orders, weapons charged and shields maximized as they prepared to crush this bold human attack. Then the second group came around the planet at tremendous speed, their weapons already firing. The Imperial fleet suddenly faced threats from 2 directions. Confusion spread through their ranks as captains tried to decide which enemy to engage. That's when the missiles arrived. Hundreds of long-range weapons fired from across the system converged on the Imperial formation with devastating coordination. Point defense systems, already stressed from fighting on 2 fronts, failed to stop the majority of the missiles. Explosions rippled through the Imperial fleet. Ships that had never been touched in combat suddenly found their shields failing and armor breaching. The carefully maintained defensive formation collapsed as captains made independent decisions to save their vessels. Terran Command warns. The Galactic Empire crossed the border and faced the fleet part. The Imperial War Council met in a chamber deep beneath the surface of their capital world. For 3,000 years, this room had been where the Empire planned its conquests. Today, for the first time, they gathered to discuss their own defeat. War Marshal Thex Orin stood before a holographic display showing the damage from the human raids. Red markers indicated destroyed shipyards, supply depots, and military installations. There were dozens of them spreading across Imperial space like a disease. "The humans have struck 14 systems in the past 20 days, he reported, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "They appear without warning, destroy military targets with precision, and vanish before our response forces arrive. They've crippled our forward offensive capabilities." Counselor Vixara, one of the few voices that had argued against invading human space, studied the damage reports. "How many civilian casualties?" "Minimal. The humans avoid civilian targets. They've broadcast warnings before each attack, giving our civilians time to evacuate military zones." Thex Orin made a disgusted sound. "They fight with honor, which is more than we showed them." "Marshal, I notice you did not say that sarcastically," another counselor observed. "No. I've studied their tactics extensively since our defeat at the border. The humans are not lucky. They're not primitive. They are dangerous in ways we never imagined." Thex Orin brought up recordings from the Battle of Callus Prime. "Watch how they coordinate their attacks. Each ship operates independently, yet they work together perfectly. Their captains make decisions in seconds that would take our commanders hours of committee meetings to approve." The council watched in silence as the human ships tore through Imperial defenses. The battle lasted less than 2 hours, but it represented a fundamental shift in galactic power. The Empire was no longer invincible. "We have mobilized 50,000 ships," Thex Orin continued, "but the humans have proven that numbers alone don't guarantee victory. They strike our supply lines and staging areas, preventing us from bringing our full strength to bear. Every day we delay, they grow stronger while we grow weaker. What are you suggesting? Vixara asked. Peace. Immediate negotiations before this war escalates beyond control. The humans have demonstrated both their capability and their restraint. They could have bombarded our cities but chose not to. That is an opportunity we should not waste. The council erupted in arguments. Some councilors demanded total war to avenge the Empire's honor. Others, seeing the tactical reports, recognized the truth in Thexoran's words. The Empire was facing an enemy that fought unlike anything in their experience. While the Empire debated, Commodore Hyunwoo met with Admiral Ji-won and the rest of Terran Command. Task Force Spear had returned home with minimal losses and maximum effect. The strategic situation had shifted dramatically in humanity's favor. The Empire's mobilization has slowed, Dr. Hana reported, displaying intelligence gathered from deep space sensors and intercepted communications. Their logistics network is in chaos. We've destroyed enough shipyards and supply depots that they can't effectively support a 50,000 ship offensive. What about civilian morale in the Empire? Admiral Ji-won asked, declining rapidly. Citizens who never worried about war are now watching human ships appear in their systems. Our policy of avoiding civilian casualties is working in our favor. The Empire's own people are questioning why their government started a war with a species that offers peace. Captain Dae-hyun pulled up tactical displays. We have a window of opportunity here. The Empire is off balance, their leadership is divided, and their military infrastructure is damaged. If we push now, we could force a decisive end to this conflict. Or we could overextend and give them reason to unite against us, Captain Sun-hee countered. We've been winning because we're smart, not because we're stronger. If we get cocky, we'll make the same mistake the Empire made. Ji-won listened to both perspectives. Dr. Hana, what's your assessment of their political situation? Fragmented. The Empire isn't a single unified species. It's 7 different civilizations held together by military dominance and economic dependence. Some species are questioning whether they want to continue fighting humanity. Others see this as an opportunity to gain more autonomy from the central government. Then we need to exploit that division. Ji-won made her decision. Ambassador Tae Yang is already working the diplomatic angle at the Galactic Council. We need to support him by demonstrating that we can end this war whenever we choose. Commodore Hyunwoo, I want you to plan one more operation, something that will show the Empire we could strike their capital itself if we wanted to. But we won't actually do it, Hyunwoo said, understanding the strategy. Exactly. We'll position forces close enough to threaten their most valuable systems, but we won't attack unless they force us to. It's a show of strength with an offer of mercy. Over the next week, Terran forces repositioned throughout the border regions. Long-range scouts pushed deep into Imperial space, making no secret of their presence. The message was clear. Humanity could go wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted. On the Imperial capital, panic gripped the population. Citizens watched human scout ships on their sensors, knowing that where scouts went, warships could follow. The government tried to maintain calm, but rumors spread faster than official statements could counter them. Lieutenant Bora, now serving as Commodore Hyunwoo's senior communications officer, monitored Imperial broadcasts with fascination. Sir, you need to hear this. It's from one of the Empire's client species, the Velkari. Their representative just made an unauthorized broadcast. The recording showed a Velkari official, her crystalline features showing obvious stress. Citizens of the Empire, we have been told that humanity threatens our way of life. But I have reviewed the evidence. The humans did not start this war. They did not attack our civilians. They defended their territory when we invaded it. Perhaps it is time to ask ourselves, why are we fighting people who only want to be left alone? That's going to cause problems for the Imperial government, Hyunwoo observed. How are they responding? They're trying to suppress it, but the message is spreading across Imperial space. Other species are starting to ask the same questions. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Council, Ambassador Tae Yang was working to isolate the Empire diplomatically. He met privately with representatives from neutral species, presenting evidence of Imperial aggression and human restraint. Look at the casualty figures, he told a group of ambassadors. The Empire has lost thousands of military vessels, but fewer than 10,000 personnel. We could have killed millions if our goal was destruction. Instead, we've offered surrender terms before every battle and accepted them when given. We've avoided civilian infrastructure completely. Does this sound like a species bent on conquest? The ambassadors had to admit it did not. Several species that had remained neutral began making statements supporting humanity's right to defend itself. The diplomatic pressure on the Empire increased daily. On the 30th day after the Battle of Kalis Prime, Admiral Jiwan received a communication from an unexpected source. War Marshal Thexorin himself requested a private channel to discuss terms. The conversation was brief and direct. Thexorin appeared on the screen looking tired but clear-eyed. Admiral Jiwan, I am empowered by the Imperial War Council to discuss an end to hostilities. I'm listening. Marshal. The Empire acknowledges that our ultimatum was unjustified and our invasion was a mistake. We are prepared to recognize human sovereignty over all disputed systems and to establish a formal peace treaty. In exchange, we ask that human forces withdraw from Imperial space and cease all military operations. Jiwan kept her expression neutral. Those terms are acceptable in principle, but we need guarantees. The Empire has threatened us once. How do we know you won't try again in 10 years when you've rebuilt your forces? You want a permanent deterrent, Thexorin said. It wasn't a question. I want mutual respect backed by clear consequences. The Empire needs to understand that humanity will defend itself effectively if threatened. Your people need to see that we prefer peace but are prepared for war. What do you propose? A joint military monitoring system along our borders. Regular communication between our commands. Cultural and scientific exchanges. Let our people learn about each other so we don't repeat this mistake. Jiwan paused. And one more thing. Humanity wants a permanent seat on the Galactic Council, not as a junior member but as an equal voice in galactic affairs. Thexorin was quiet for a long moment. The Council will resist. They've maintained their power structure for millennia. Then they'll learn the same lesson you did. Humanity doesn't ask permission to be treated as equals. We demonstrate that we are equals, and reasonable people accept reality. Jiwan's tone was firm but not hostile. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Marshal. We just want our place in it. I will present your terms to the War Council. I believe they will accept. We've learned that humans make better allies than enemies. After the channel closed, Commodore Hunwu entered Jiwan's office. Do you think they'll agree? They don't have much choice. Terran command warns the Galactic Empire. Cross the border and face the fleet part. 5-6 months after the treaty was signed, Commander Hyunwoo stood on the observation deck of Horizon's Gate and watched something he had never imagined seeing. Ships bearing the flags of 5 different alien species approached the station in formation with human vessels. They were coming for the first joint military exercise between the Terran fleet and former enemies. Lieutenant Bora joined him at the viewport, datapad in hand. The Imperial delegation will dock in 20 minutes. War Marshal Thexorin is leading their group personally. How do you feel about that? Hyunwoo asked. Bora had been on duty during the Imperial invasion, watching as thousands of enemy ships crossed the border. Strange, she admitted. 6 months ago, we were shooting at each other. Now we're supposed to work together. But I suppose that's what peace looks like. Complicated and uncomfortable. The Imperial ships docked without incident. War Marshal Thexorin came aboard with a small honor guard, looking very different from the arrogant commander who had threatened humanity. The war had aged him, adding lines to his scaled face and a cautious respect to his bearing. Commander Hyunwoo, Thexorin greeted him formally. Thank you for hosting this exercise. I know it's not easy for your people to welcome us. We all have to start somewhere, Hyunwoo replied. The war is over. Both sides need to move forward. Wise words. I wish my government had shown such wisdom 6 months ago. Thexorin looked out at the gathered ships. Tell me honestly, Commander, if we had pushed harder, if we had brought all 50,000 ships against you at once, could you have stopped us? Hyunwoo considered the question carefully. Maybe not stopped completely, but we would have made you pay such a terrible price that winning wouldn't have been worth it. Sometimes the strongest defense is making sure your enemy understands the cost of victory. I learned that lesson well. Your Admiral Jiwan taught it thoroughly. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Jiwan was dealing with a different kind of challenge. She stood before the Terran Senate, defending her military budget against politicians who believed the war's end meant defense spending could be reduced. Senators, peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the successful management of conflict, Jiwan explained with patient firmness. The Empire learned to respect us because we demonstrated capability. The moment we become weak, that respect vanishes and we're back where we started. Senator Young-ho, chair of the Defense Committee, nodded agreement. The Admiral is right. We're seeing positive changes across the galaxy because the Empire knows humanity can defend itself. That deterrent needs to be maintained. But do we need such a large fleet during peacetime? Another senator argued. Couldn't we redirect those resources to civilian development? We could, G1 agreed. Right up until another species decides to test us. Then we'd be scrambling to rebuild a military that took generations to develop. I fought 2 wars in my career, senators. Both started because someone thought we looked weak. I won't make that mistake again. The debate continued, but G1 knew she would win. The Senate had learned the same lesson the Empire did. Humanity's strength came from preparation, not desperation. At the Galactic Council Station Concordia, Ambassador Taeyang was experiencing his own challenges. Humanity now held a permanent council seat, but many of the older species resented the newcomers. They saw humans as upstarts who had forced their way into galactic politics through military action. Your species has been in space for barely 200 years, a Mothkar counselor said during a debate. You lack the wisdom that comes from millennia of experience. Perhaps, Taeyang replied calmly. But we also lack the arrogance that comes from millennia of unchallenged power. The Empire invaded our space because they couldn't imagine losing. How many other species have suffered because of similar arrogance? The chamber grew quiet. It was a truth many counselors preferred not to acknowledge. The Galactic Council had allowed the Empire to expand unchecked because challenging them was dangerous. Humanity had broken that pattern by refusing to be intimidated. The human makes a valid point, Counselor Vixera spoke up. The Velkari representative had become one of humanity's strongest allies, seeing humans as proof that the old order could change. Perhaps fresh perspective is exactly what this council needs. Over the following months, human influence in galactic politics grew steadily. Captain Daehyun led the Indomitable on goodwill missions to neutral systems, demonstrating that human military power was coupled with peaceful intentions. Dr. Hana established scientific exchanges with several species, sharing knowledge and building relationships beyond politics. The real changes, however, were happening within the Empire itself. The war had exposed fractures in their society that couldn't be hidden anymore. Several client species were demanding more autonomy, inspired by humanity's successful resistance. The Velkari were the first to formally request independence. Counselor Vixara presented their case to the Galactic Council with Ambassador Taeyang's support. For 3,000 years, the Velkari have been part of the Empire. We joined voluntarily, believing in shared prosperity, but the war with humanity showed us that the Empire makes decisions without consulting its members. We deserve the same sovereignty that humanity fought to protect. The Empire's representative tried to argue, but the momentum was against them. Within a year, 3 species had peacefully separated from the Empire, establishing their own governments with Terran support and protection guarantees. The Empire's territory shrank for the first time in its history. 2 years after the war, Commander Hyunwoo received another promotion. Fleet Command wanted him to establish a new training academy focused on preparing the next generation of officers. He accepted, knowing that teaching others was as important as fighting. On his last day at Horizon's Gate, he walked through the station with Captain Sun-hee, who would be taking over command. The station looks different, she observed. More traffic, more activity. Trade routes, Hyunwoo explained. Now that the Empire isn't threatening invasion, dozens of species are doing business in human space. That defense station has become a commercial hub. Isn't that what we fought for? The chance to live peacefully? It is. But we can't forget the lessons we learned. Peace exists because we were willing to fight for it. Dr. Hana published a comprehensive study of the war, analyzing what made humanity successful against a superior force. Her conclusion became required reading at military academies across the galaxy. Humanity won not through technology or numbers, but through adaptability, coordination, and the willingness to think creatively under pressure. These are not traits exclusive to humans, but they are traits humanity has mastered through necessity. The study had an interesting effect. Species across the galaxy began studying human military history, looking for lessons they could apply. Human military advisors found themselves in demand, teaching the tactics that had defeated the Empire. Admiral Ji-won watched these developments with satisfaction tinged with caution. She met regularly with War Marshal Thexorin, who had become an unlikely friend through mutual respect. Your species changed the galaxy, he told her during one meeting. Not just through military victory, but by proving that the old ways weren't the only ways. The Empire changed too, Jiwan replied. You could have demanded total war. Instead, you chose peace. That took courage. It took common sense. Humans taught us that there's no shame in recognizing when you've made a mistake. The shame is in continuing that mistake out of pride. On the 5th anniversary of the Battle of Horizons Gate, a memorial was unveiled at the station. It honored both human and Imperial personnel who died in the war, recognizing that soldiers on both sides were following orders and defending what they believed in. Commander Hyunwoo attended the ceremony along with War Marshal Thex Oren. They stood together before the memorial, two former enemies united by shared history and hard-won respect. Do you think we'll ever fight again? Thex Oren asked quietly. I hope not, but if we do, it won't be because humanity looked weak or you looked arrogant. Both our species learned those lessons. Hyunwoo gestured to the memorial. These people died teaching us that peace is worth fighting for and worth maintaining. A paradox worthy of humans. Fighting for peace. No, Hyunwoo corrected gently. Fighting for the chance at peace. What we do with that chance is up to all of us. 10 years after the war, the galaxy looked very different. The Galactic Council had expanded to include more independent species. The Empire, though smaller, was more stable and respected. Humanity had established itself as a major power not through conquest, but through demonstrated capability and consistent principles. Admiral Jiwan, now retired and teaching at the War College on Earth, gave a lecture to new cadets about the lessons of the war. We didn't set out to change the galaxy, she told them. We just refused to be pushed around. But in defending ourselves effectively and treating our enemies with respect, we showed everyone that the old ways of domination and submission weren't the only options. A cadet raised their hand. Admiral, do you think we'll ever be tested like that again? Absolutely. Power always attracts challenges,